I'm joined with Ricardo from Cafe Rivenśe here, and first of all, congratulations! You're a big award winner. So good job. We love love working with you guys, and this is kind of a big deal for both of us, I think.
Thank you so much, Ben. Hi, I'm Ricardo Ureña, and it's great to see this award coming. Has been a whole thing, from production to roasting and brewing coffee. So it's going to be a combination of factors, a combination of with things aligned, and that's great. It's been great to be working with you, Vin, and having coffee in the competition and winning.
So we won a Good Food Award, and that is recognized for two things. It's showing that the coffee is really, really outstanding coffee, and then it's also showing that you guys are putting a lot of effort into the sustainability side of the coffee as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about just your family's farm and what you guys are all about?
Cafe Rivenśe was founded in 2005 by my parents, Regular and Isabel, with the idea to add value to our land, to the things that we produce here. And year after year, we have been growing an extension of coffee and also the ways we process the coffees. And my brothers and I, we returned back to the farm to work with in the company in different areas. And here we are in a region where Chirripó microregion in the Brunca region in the south part of Costa Rica. And we are next to two national parks. And in this area, the mountains where we are, has a diverse environment, and we have tried to produce even more coffee, have more extension of the plantations, but with a return to the environment as well. So the areas where we grow coffee, we combine with the native trees and shade to create a good environment for the fauna and the flora surrounding the farm. It can also move from one place to the other through the coffee plantations, instead of having just one bush that grows in big amounts. It's having space for all those things, creating food for that and protecting the water sources. And also, we are not an organic space, but we try to produce our coffee in a sustainable way, where we can measure the amount of chemical that we are using and which specific ones and with a specific purpose, without adding things just to use them because it's a recommendation. There must be a purpose on the specific thing that we use. And we also do the processing and the dry mill and wet and dry mill, and the coffee goes exported from the farm. So the things that we have been combining during the years have been new steps to be able to produce, process, and export the coffee at the same place. And here at Cafe Rivenśe, as I mentioned, we are here where we are now is the bottom of the farm, and is where the processing areas are, where we bring the coffee and coffee cherries as a fresh cherry we collect from the plants, and where we pulp, we dry, and we store the coffee to let it rest for a few months, and then we remove the things that are not good with the coffee, and the first quality is exported straight from the farm. So it's been, as I mentioned, almost 17 years now, combining different things from production, processing, and exporting also.
It's a lot of moving pieces there that you guys are putting together, and each one is very specialized. So I know it's been a lot for you guys to put all that together, and you're doing it in such a high degree of quality and precision, and I think it's part of what makes the coffee really good is how much you guys are controlling with kind of each little step along the process to make sure that the coffee is coming out really perfect, which is cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about how your farm, you've kind of broken it up into different little micro lots, and then Desafio is one of those micro lots?
Talking about the differences that we have in the farms, we have tried to see how different an altitude, or how can the altitude influence on the coffees and the varieties and the land position where the coffee grows. So that's how we have split the areas in different pieces or microts. We have El Mango at the bottom, then we have Las Torres, and the other side of Las Torres, we have Desafío, then El Bambú, La Huaca, El Higuerón, Catarata, La Naciente, Vista Chirripo at the top, and two new projects that we're working on, and one is El Renacer. So these different areas, each one has a own characteristic regarding talking about the altitude or the varieties. In El Desafío, it's looking southeast, and this one has a combination of mostly Villas Archie, Villalobos, and also some local, let's say, criollo or local traditional plants that we used to grow here in the area for many years. So this area is interesting, and also how we have processed the coffees. So it's a combination of few things: how the coffee grows, and coffee growing in a particular land can show differences between other lands, but also same coffee with different process can create different flavors, and that's what we have done with the Desafío, having an additional step during the processing. So it's like a very good raw material coming from the farm, plus a creative process on the dry mill and the wet mill, sorry, where we have incorporated a little bit of fermentation with the honey, with the mucilage that is covering the parchment, that is naturally there. So some people when hear about honey for the first time is like, is it something else, something added? No, it's the same mucilage, the same sweetness, and as honey that the coffee has, and this one is a fuel for different things, different steps, and ways to ferment the coffees. Um, Fermentation is no longer about thin coffee, as we can do something good during the processing. And in this case, where we pull the coffee, remove the out skin, and we put the coffee in rice beds for a few days, and then we put it in sealed bags to let it ferment for a while, a few days in a control and shade room. It creates a particular flavor on the coffee. So there's been a few things added to create a very good coffee, plus the roasting, so roasting at the right level.
Yeah, so that extended fermentation is part of what gives that Desafio that like just really explosive, like big fruity floral aromas. That's really fun. Can you talk a little bit, you guys? So you're doing this kind of extended fermentation with the coffee and the honey, and then you're drying it completely on raised beds, and you have this incredible network of raised beds that you guys have built, all that are covered to prevent from any kind of moisture coming from the top. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of crazy network of raised beds you built here?
Well, it has been many reasons why we process the coffee in that way. One has been that we saw that the mucilage and the coffee added new flavors and a better character to our coffee compared with the wash we used to do in the past. So we started doing sweeter and cleaner honeys compared with the first things that we did, and then reducing the water also until now, that when we don't use any water in the wet process. The name is wet because the fruit is still fresh. But in our case, it's more like a dry, wet process without any addition of water to transport or remove the coffee. And it creates, or it gives us a very clean mucilage that can stand and dehydrate in the beds, in rice beds, to concentrate the sugars that are surrounding the bean. And then, as I mentioned before, these sugars will be the fuel for fermentation in a slow, very slow fermentation in sealed bags. And the funnels that you mentioned, well, has been years of trying to find the best way in our conditions to still dry coffee when the weather is crazy. And we have had years with no rain during the crop season or rain every week during
Hmm.
the ripening season. So a solution that we saw for that was to create like a roof, like a rounded roof with beds in the middle,
Hmm.
in a space in between where we can walk, move the coffees around, and the cover are from one stream to the other of the beds. So it creates funnels where we can put the coffee, have air circulating from the top to the bottom, also helping to take off the moisture that the sun is removing, and still be able to work inside. And when it's raining, the coffee is still dry,
Right.
and sunny, it's dry more. So that has been a way to process coffee. And 4 years ago, and last year we built new ones. 4 years ago, we created a two levels dryer, and this one has at the bottom, at the bottom, like 1 meter from the floor, bed at that moment, at that position, and then we have 2 meters up another layer. So in that way, we have two drying spaces in the same space of land,
Hmm.
uh, but the sun help us to dry the bottom with the shade that is moving during the day. Uh,
Hmm.
and also with coffees that we want as lower dry, we place them in the bottom, and those that we want like a quicker dehydrate, uh, quicker being a coffee to be quicker dehydrate, we put it in the top, so it move very fast the water outside. In this case, the coffee that we have been talking for the desafío is a coffee that mostly what we do in this process, this special fermentation we do is we pre-dry the coffee, so it's reducing the moisture content outside, and then with this sticky mucilage still alive, we put it in seal bags. So it
Hmm.
helps to still ferment a little bit, but in a slow way, compared with a coffee that is full of moisture. Like a fresh cherry can ferment like in 1 or 2 days. Can be the outside of the coffee could be like completely changed
Hmm.
how, because of the moisture it has outside. With this process, we stand the fermentation for the coffees. So has been like a try, being good and run, and the coffee is tasting in a good way.
For sure. Yeah, it tastes great. All right, let's see what else we got. Could you talk a little bit, Desafio, how you guys had to kind of recondition the soil when you first acquired the land, and how it sounds like it took some time to make the soil healthy for coffee plants, and kind of what that process was like?
Yes. Well, here in the area, the main activity used to be cattle production, and it creates erosion. I mean, yes, and it creates erosion in most of the lands. And when we acquired this area, what we did was to uh, first let to rest for a little bit for a while, plant bananas and other trees that can create a good shade for the coffee. Um, Work with the plants that were already there, because there were some coffee plants, And then was trying to make terraces to keep the soil in one place and not erosionating. Um, and then we planted the coffee at the edge of the terraces to be able to walk behind the terrace, through the terrace and behind the coffee plants. And this system helps a lot to the soil because it incorporates a lot of organic material. Poro, which is one of the trees that we grow, is a very good one that helped a lot with the nitrogen in the soil. And so, and this one grows very fast. So it's one that we can cut every 4 months. Like we usually do 3 times. Where we go and cut the part of the tree, and incorporates fresh organic material to the soils in combination with the fertilizer that we apply to help the plant to grow in a better way. So these things help a lot to keep the land in a good shape and with enough nutrients to help the plant to grow and ripe and produce good coffee. And also being extracting from the soil and adding back the things that the soil is losing from the production. So I'm explaining this in this area, but it's something that we do in most of the farm, and
Right,
where
right.
we try to um, incorporate back what the plants are taking down from the soil.
So one of the varietals you planted there, which is what we're getting, is the Via Sarchi. Could you talk a little bit about, that's a pretty unique varietal in the cup.
The SRG is a hybrid that was discovered here in Costa Rica. It's a mutation from the typical line. So in coffee, worldwide, we mainly grow two lines, Bourbon and Typica. Typica is one that has a brown tip, and it mutated in Sarchi in the West Valley in many years ago. And the people saw that the plant has a different shape compared with the taller plants that used to be grown in the country. This one had a shorter shape, more production, and a good taste. So people started to produce more of this one. And this one is well adapted to the West Valley, to the weather there. We wanted to see how it grows in this area, which is the weather changed a little bit, and also the soil and the weather, and yes, and the moisture environment and the humidity environment. But it grows in a good way here in the country as well, and the region as well. So this one is not a tall plant; it's a short plant. It's good in production. It produces the ups and downs is not that obvious like in other varieties, like compared with Catuai. Catuai has a very good crop, and the next one goes down a lot. So BSRG is very stable. Doesn't have like a push, like a very high production. It's very stable one year and other. And a new one that is a new variety that is also a mutation from Typica is Villalobos. We're also growing that in a bigger amount. So in the future, it could be Villalobos coming to Jobim if it's tasting good.
Cool.
It's been great to see also coffees from that line in terms of genetic material, because in Costa Rica we mainly grow Caturra and Catuai, and both are mutation from Bourbon, the other one that he mentioned. So having a combination of both lines with the different mutations it's been great to have different things coming from the same areas of the same lands.
Do you have certain tastes that you associate with those Typica-based plants that are different from the Bourbon-based ones?
Currently, a typical coffee it tends to be more citrus in the acidity, or like oranges or lime, like mandarina, as we say in Spanish, or tangerine. Tends to be more in that area, more elegant, and the production is not that as high as a Bourbon related variety, but they even produce very well. So that's more into that area. And the processes also add some of the purple and red fruits notes to the cup. So at the end could be a combination of like a red fruits with a citric acidity and a good body,
Hmm.
uh, uh, mild body or no, like silky body
Hmm.
into that area. So tends to be like that.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'd agree. I was just curious if you had an opinion. All right, let's see. What else have I got here? Um, I think you've answered a lot of these. Farm improvements. Do you want to talk about? You're investing a lot of money and a lot of effort into some. You've already talked about improvements with all these raised beds, and you're also dealing with the optical sorters and things like that. Do you want to talk about some of the changes you guys have been working on implementing, or I guess improvements over changes?
Yeah. Well, things that in a farm you always have new things where to invest, and we have prioritized and new plantations and also changes in the equipment that can help us to um, be more efficient in the processing, being able to produce more coffee in less time, and also process the coffee in a better way. So that's why we recently replaced the density bed and the screen size sorters to bigger machines with better capacity. So to be able to have a cleaner first quality
Hmm.
C10. And also we incorporated a optical sorter, an electronic optical sorter. So this one is looking one per one the beans, and those are different in terms of color, or if one has a defect or like a shade that can influence on how the coffee tastes, it's removed by this machine. And so these changes has helped us to be more efficient and also to provide a better green bean and make the life of the rooster even easier, without things to be removed at the other side. We incorporated few 3 years ago, and this past crop we incorporated another one. We are using now a mechanical dryer, and this mechanical dryer help us to get the coffee moisture to the level that we need at the right moment, at the right time. With weather changing during the picking, during the drying season, uh, a coffee could stay in the rice beds for from 8 days to 20 days. And during the peak of the crop, if a coffee stays in the beds 20 days, it could be a disaster for the processing, because it creates a bottleneck
Hmm.
in the space. So what we did was to incorporate a machine that replicates the temperature that the coffee gets in the rice beds, but constantly. So coffee comes usually stays 5 days in rice beds, and it comes to the mechanical dryer where it stays 2 more days with a constant temperature around 35 to 45 degrees in Celsius. So it has helped us a lot in being more efficient in the drying, and also, as I mentioned, drying the coffee when it's needed. The To reduce the moisture content from around 50% as the coffee is fresh to 18% is not that complicated. But the energy that we need from 18 to 10%, which is the right one, the right moisture content, it requires more energy, and that energy is the one that is needed in many days in the rice beds, or a couple of days in these static mechanical dryers, which is a vertical, this is a vertical cylinder that has in the middle some pieces that move the coffee constantly. And so it's helping to have the coffee all together with the same moisture content and hot air coming from the bottom to the top. passing through the coffee and removing the moisture content in the
Hmm.
bean. So as those has been things that we have added and ways that we try to do to also be more efficient here and be able to bring a better product as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like, a number of years ago, mechanical drying was a thing that was like, everyone was very scared of it. It was like, oh, that's very low quality coffee. But then as weather changes, more and more people are realizing, oh, wait a minute, we need to change something. Otherwise, we're never going to have coffee to ship. And people have started looking back and realizing that if you use the tool properly, you can produce really, really good quality coffee with it. And a lot of that bad reputation came from misusing it and, using temperatures that were too high and just damaging coffees. But you don't need to do it like that. You can treat it properly and still make really, really good, clean coffee. And then in response to the processing equipment that you guys are adding, I think it's worth noting that that stuff makes a particularly big difference when you're using more natural and honey style coffees where you don't have that water density separation. So you're relying, much more on your pickers, but then you're relying on your equipment to get stuff really clean. So that makes a huge difference for us in just seeing these, honey natural coffees that are really, really clean and don't have any of those kind of off defect flavors, which again is part of how you get something that is a big award winning coffee, is using those types of tools. So definitely makes a difference. Can you talk a little bit about the pickers you guys are working with too? So you guys, your pickers are, that's where you're getting the coffees at the peak point of ripeness. That's where you're making sure that you're not picking those underripe, overripe, or any defect coffees. And you guys, sounds like you've got a really awesome group of people that you're working with and have built a cool program. So do you want to talk a little bit about that too?
Yes, they are a key element of the quality in the farm. We can do many things in the process and in growing coffee, but the picking is a key step. And we work with the Panamanians, the Panamanian indigenous Panamanian, and they come from a region called Chiriquí, well, Chiriquí and Bocas del Toro, in northern part of Panama. We are next to that area, and they come from the season. A season here in Costa Rica, and people are here in our farm. We start picking coffee in October, November. Mainly, it starts in November. So it's like November, December, January, and part of February, where we get the red cherries at one moment and we bring them to the processing facility and then the warehouse. So that's a key point where we need a big amount of people to do that job because it's done manually. The areas where we grow coffee are not able to use like a mechanical process, a mechanical way to pick coffee. So we need people and very very strong and let's say that yes, good coffee, good people that can do a very good job on collecting the red, the red properly cherries to have the better taste in the coffees. Um, Sometimes people collect from orange to almost brown coffees. In that range, you have like an unripe cherry and an overripe cherry. What we try to do is to collect in the middle when the cherries are mostly red, and they're a key part of because every single cherry is collected one by one by hand. So the pickers have these skills to differentiate which ones are at the right moment to take it from the plants, and then a few days later they can come from those oranges, those orange color that change into red like a couple of weeks later.
Right.
So what we do is, yes, we work with a few people in Panama, and they come for this period of time. We provide the transportation to pass through the border, in Panama border, and they come here at the farm. They stay in houses that we provide with all the services and things to cook and be there at the farm. And they from there they move to different spaces, and it's a work that they do based on how much they can pick per day. So at the end of the day, they go early in the morning, collect during the day, and then in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, we go there, and each one has plastic bags with cherries that they collect during the morning. So we measure in a small box.
Hmm.
We size every coffee, and we pay them for the amount of cherries that they collect during the day. And some then they do a very good earning coming from that, because there are a few guys that are very quick. Most of
Hmm.
them they do what say during these days here in our farm. Here in Costa Rica, we have a specific law that specify the relationships, specify how things can be in between pickers, producers, micro mills, and exporters, and it regulates a few things. The minimum payment for one cajuela is determined by law. We pay a 50% else, uh, 50% in addition
Hmm.
to return to them the amount, I mean, the precise work that they do on collecting the right ripe cherries. And that's a way also to thank them on the work that they do in picking the good stuff.
Yeah. So it costs a little bit more to pay them, but you get really, really good work because of that. And that
Yeah.
makes a huge difference in the coffee quality for sure.
Yes.
Cool. I think I got two more questions for you. Um, One, can you talk a little bit about, we're bringing in a naturally processed geisha from you guys this year, which we're really excited about. We'll just have a very small quantity, but could you talk a little bit about that really cool coffee?
Well, geisha is like a new thing, a new stuff. It it is an Ethiopian variety that started to be promoted like 20 years ago in a farm in Panama. It came from Ethiopia and it stayed in a research center in Costa Rica for a while. And these plants were highlighted in Panama, being a farm, where they saw a very good result. And after that, it spread out to different producing areas in the countries, and it's because it has a different taste, a very clean, sweet, elegant, a lot of flowers coming from the fragrance and the cup. So it creates a unique flavor in the coffee, and people like that. One thing, and is also a reason to have a limited amount of coffee. It produces a less amount of cherries compared with other varieties. So in order to grow more coffee, we need to have a bigger space or have a limited offer. And this one grows in the top of the farm in
Hmm.
Vista Chico, which is 1,825 meters high. Um, and from there we take cherries and we bring them to the mill and we dry them with the pulp. That's what the natural process means, and it stayed around 15-20 days in the beds to be dried. And yes, it creates a really different taste in the cup. And so to drink a nice different thing, a geisha coffee, a natural geisha is that thing to drink a wild and like a different coffee in the cup. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. That, just tasting through the samples, and I remember tasting through it when we went down and visited, and they're just such like you know, big, expressive. They just jump off the table in a way that's they're fun. They're really fun to taste, and yeah, I'm excited to have it in. All right, one last question for you. One thing that has really impressed me about your guys' farm is it seems like you're a very like future oriented company where you really put a lot of thought into thinking about not only what you're cultivating for yourselves, but kind of the farm and how you're leaving things for kind of the next generation of people. So can you talk a little bit about why is that important to you guys?
Well, to talk about the future, it's also important to talk about the past. And here we are the fourth generation as coffee producers. And the village San Juan Norte was founded by my great grandfather when he came from an area close to the Central Valley here to the south. And he established a plantation here with his family, um, also for cows and coffee. And after that, it has stayed times different periods of time in the family, and this has helped us to think in ways to keep the land from one generation to the other. And it stayed with my grandpa, and then now the farm my brothers and I and my parents, we united the whole land as my grandpa used to have, and things has been okay. So we're investing in land, but this land needs to produce, and the best way to produce here is in coffee, and coffee takes a lot of years uh, to grow and also to have a investment return. So that's why I mentioned that thinking on the way our ancestors used to grow a land, a farm here, is a way to also think on how can we keep this in the family and also produce in a good way in the future. So we always think in coffee as a long-term activity. Uh, from the time we put the seed to germinate to the first crop, it needs 4 years here, and then from the 4 year, you need at least 3, 4 more years to get your investment back if the conditions are proper. So from the moment when you thought, okay, I'm gonna plant a coffee tree, you need around 8 years just to get this income, this investment in return. So we see this as a very quick activity, which we could be out of coffee very fast. So all investment we have done, we think okay, it could be useful for 1 to 5 years, more crops even, and that's what we have done doing year after year, has been a way of producing. And well, our parents saw the farm in that way, and that's been also the way my brothers and I we contribute to the way the company grows and how we invest. But we do investments thinking on, as you said, on this ambition. So the decisions are made in family. We we like to call this like a board, like a board of advisors of, yes. At the end is the meeting of the family, sitting together, drinking coffee, and making decisions on what is the next step or what is the next thing that we are gonna do. And it led us to still have a company and a family and work together in ways of where we can be sustainable and produce many years.
I love that. I love, yeah, just the the long-term way of thinking, and I mean, it's clearly benefited you guys, and I love kind of honoring, everything that's led you to where you are, and that kind of excitement for how you can move things into the future. And that's part of why we love working with you guys, and part of why we feel confident, this is a long-term thing where we're wanting to keep doing this year after year after year. So, yeah, thank you guys for making such an amazing coffees, and thank you for producing this award-winning coffee for us. And yeah, we love you guys. We love working with you guys. So appreciate it.
It's been great to be working all these years, and well, very good things come. Very good things happen when the good intentions are aligned, and we're very happy also providing to a very good coffee company.
Nice.
Great, many years now.
Nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, Ricardo.